So this will be the first episode in my new vlog that I'm starting in conjunction with my written work that I've been submitting before game days. This will be more of a breakdown and reaction after Broncos games. I would have wished that this wouldn't start on probably one of the lowest points in our franchise, especially after Sunday, but you got to start somewhere. So this will be the first entry in that. So without further ado, let's jump in. So let's start with the offense. I know there'll be a lot of criticism on Russell Wilson's play. It just seems to be, especially with the quarterback play in this town, the most scrutinized and maybe the most unfair comparison that we have on the team right now. I don't think that Russell Wilson played all that bad. There were, obviously, he does have, and it's been a consistent thing throughout his career where he does have one or two throws a game that kind of leave you wondering where he was going with the ball. But for the most part, I did think you saw him more comfortable in the pocket. I did think that he did extend plays, and I also thought that he did well to manage the game while the game was still beyond the point of no return. So what that means is, I think any kind of result or action that you saw after like midway through the third quarter, game was already decided at that point. I'm kind of judging my comparison everything before that. The touchdown to Cortland Sutton early on in the game, I think, was actually what Russ has been like this entire year. And especially if you look at some of his numbers that he's been putting up, he's actually been fairly consistent and pretty productive. Now, I don't know if it's a fair criticism, but I do see a lot of chatter online where there's just a harsh critique of what he's doing in games. Now, what I will say is that I don't believe that Russ is a top 10 quarterback anymore, but even having a top 15 guy that can manage the offense, I still think is a commodity. And even if Russ is at the point in his career where he is more of a facilitator than a difference maker, I still think it's a huge plus for the team. To kind of go hand in hand with that, this team needs to be a running the ball team, and they'll need to manufacture drives that go 8, 9, 10 play drives in order to have a productive offense. I think we're seeing glimpses of that. I don't know that we've seen it consistently, but I think this is more just a transitionary period between players getting acclimated to Sean Payton's offense and Payton knowing what his players do well. So I truly think that the final product of the offense will be better personified on the field towards the end of the year than it is right now. Not to say that it's been great, but I think it will be better. So with that being said, let's move on to the defense. So what can be said about the defense that hasn't already been said? Essentially, this is the same group from Ejiro Evero's unit last year that was inherited by Vance Joseph. Forget why the hire was made, why any of that was done. If we're looking at just the pieces that are put on the field, this is still a solid unit, and they should be playing better. It's concerning to see Vance go so soft most of the time, where he seems very content just to rush 4 and drop 8 in the coverage, and also be very light on the defensive line when it comes to obvious running situations. You saw Miami gash them repeatedly with only 4 or 5 guys in the box. You also saw Miami throw relatively well, even when they brought pressure on the rare instance that they do. How do you fix that? That is a great question, and I don't know that I 100% have the answer for that. It does seem that when VJ does bring pressure, he gets burned, and then he reverts to basically playing very safe. It's concerning when you see more aggressive game plans in the preseason. It's concerning to see the body language on the defensive players when it kind of almost looks like they're going through the motions. So schematically, I don't know if this is VJ not trusting his players to digest his entire defensive philosophy. I don't know if it's the players not, doing too much to react and not just playing. So it's hard to say where this is going wrong. But I think the constant that everybody can see is that this is relatively the same group, and the only change has been VJ, and so far that has been a big negative, to put it mildly. Obviously, there isn't too much criticism that you can levy much more after a 70-20 loss. So I do think some of this is lost in translation between Russ and the players, between the defense and the players. And I'm not sure that this gets better. I'm not sure this gets corrected based on their body language. And typically when you see an effort like that, it doesn't typically get better. It typically gets worse. As an analyst, I'm just calling it like I see it. And as a fan, I really hope that isn't the case. So I'll also mention just a quick blurb about the special teams. I do think that's actually been one of the few bright spots in the first 3 games of the season. The past 5 years, the special teams units have been average to bad, and you haven't seen too many busted coverages as far as kick returns and punt returns. Riley Dixon is been good to solid, and he does force a lot of fair catches, which no returns is obviously a great thing. And Marvin Mims has been one of our few bright spots. He was drafted to be that difference maker in the return game, and he had a big return against Washington. Obviously had one of our few scores on Sunday. So special teams has actually been good, I guess. So that's obviously a plus. That's a plus in the plus column, and hopefully this continues through the rest of the year. To wrap everything up, and I've pointed to this before. I said this before. I hope that this is the lowest point that we can hit this season and can only go up from here. Obviously, losing 70-20 can have a really bad psychological effect on the team. So I'm hoping that they take this personally, dust themselves off, and come out with a better effort against Chicago. And I really think that this will be a contest to see who can execute better. If Denver can play mistake-free, can put together a consistent defensive effort. It doesn't have to be spectacular, but it's got to be. You got to make tackles. You got to force Fields to throw from the pocket, and then on offense, feature Javonte Williams, feature Samaje Perine, run the ball, let Russ work from play action and from being on the move, and I think we'll be okay. If they're consistent, I think they can win this game. But if we see another effort like we saw on Sunday, oh boy, it's going to be hard sitting through that one again. So, that'll be wrapping it up for this week. I'll be trying to get these out every Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on my schedule. But otherwise, if you like them, give me a like on social media for announcements. Share them with your friends and the greater Bronco community. But until next week, keep your eye on the ball, and I'll see you next time.